What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is the Behind the Glass crew back in full force. I have returned from a short hiatus to New Jersey. Earl got some cosmetic stuff done to him this week. Anthony's about to take a couple of days off on a well-deserved vacation. But I want to start this off by saying shout out to you guys and thank you to you two for holding down the fort while I was not here for the last few days. I did not get a single crisis text. I don't think you guys texted me asking for anything in particular. And that makes me feel a lot better knowing I can step out for a few days and you guys not only just hold down the fort, but excel. So kudos to you guys and thank you for making my few days off nice, stress-free, and relaxing.
Except for the traffic that you got stuck in the other day when you called me, huh?
Well, that traffic, traffic in New York City. Control.
How was the food at home?
It was good. It was good. We, with my family, I went to New York City with my brother. He took us to his favorite Chinese food spot. And like Chinese food's always good, but there are certain levels to different cuisines that just hit a little different. Like you could have good pizza and then you have great pizza. You could have good Chinese food. You could have great Chinese food in New York City. Like it'll cost you a pretty penny, but my goodness, the food is well worth it. So I ate well. I drank well. Always good to see the family, but I am excited to get back. And I picked a bad week to leave because this has been a hell of a lead up following the Chicago Bears game as the Browns get ready to take on the Houston Texans. I want to ask you guys something first, and then we'll get into the rest of the show, the rest of this week, and looking ahead towards Sunday, a little Cavs, little holiday stuff. But what was the reaction in Cleveland on the show and Monday for how close the Browns were to losing on that Hail Mary? Like, do people have PTSD on Monday from that almost catch by Daryl Mooney?
Yeah, I think it took people in the city a long time to kind of, recover from the anxiety that came with it. I felt like I damn near had a heart attack. But it was we held our breath for a long time, man, but that was a hell of a way to win the game, man. We did a dog pound bark for victory Monday in the studio and everything. So it was well worth it.
And when did you come to terms with it?
So it's funny. I only watched the last 8 minutes of the game Sunday. I wasn't on the post-game show, and I picked the best 8 minutes to watch. I looked at Bree at one point right before the Cooper touchdown. I was like, I believe in them, and then that Hail Mary hit, and I woke up Sunday morning and I was doing our montages, and I was like, wow, we really won that game, guys. Like it kind of hit me.
Yeah, I see Evan 419 in the chat says he's about to go to the Cavs game tonight. Sam Merrill's questionable. Cavs can call me. I could fill in for Sam Merrill. A little shorter, but not as good of a shooter, but similar play style. He went off last night. We're going to talk Cavs at the end. But, guys, we look forward to Houston. There are a couple of things I know you guys touched on a little bit I want to touch on again, but Earl, I want to start with this question. Is there anything left for us as a fan base, media conglomerate, group of people who talk about the Browns as much as we do? Is there anything else to learn about this Browns team? Or at this point of the season, 15 games in, do we officially know who and what the Browns are?
That's a good question. I think we do know who they are, but I think, as the season continue to play out, there might be other things that we might find out about this team that we don't know yet. But if I had to define this team as having an identity, I would say they're resilient. It's a resilient group of guys in that locker room who, despite whatever they've been through this season, they internally believe that they can accomplish the ultimate goal this year. And so, like, to continue to fight through injuries, continue to fight through off-field adversity, and then you come out here, man, and your strength of win percentage is damn near through the roof based on the quality of opponents that you've beaten. And then you couple the circumstances that surrounded said game that you was playing in. I think it definitely shows how resilient this team is. Now, we still got 3 games to go, and we just know, like in the NFL this year, across the entire league, any given Sunday, it just seems like it's a different hurdle to clear that happens in, say, a game. So I think we're still going to find out more about this team as we close out the season. But we definitely learned a lot about who they are. It's the team that definitely has an identity, and you can clearly see the culture shift. You know, we sitting up here, we talking about the almost loss that we had to Chicago. As a fan, I can remember so many seasons that the Browns won anywhere from 5 to 7 games, and there were 4 or 5 games in there within a 4-point spread that we didn't win that we could have. And here we are in 2023, and those 4 or 5 games with the 4-point spread, you know, we ended up coming out victorious. So you definitely see the culture shift. You definitely see a team with an identity moving forward. But I still think we have to figure out some more about this squad before the season ends.
Ant, what do you think?
If I had to identify them as anything this year, I don't know if I'd relate it actually to the football because so many moving pieces, but man, like as a fan, they're just fun. Like I don't remember having this much fun since, they went to the playoffs that year. Outside of that, these 2 years, they're just a fun team to watch. I kind of love that we don't win until like the 2-minute warning every week. It keeps me on my toes. I hate boring like blowout games, like the Cardinals game. I was like, okay, it's over. But when games come down to the wire like that every single week, I jumped off the couch when that Hail Mary fell out the guy's hands. Like it is a fun team to watch. And we learned so much. I think we learned something about them every week, you know, like they're resilient. They've got guys who can play that were never even drafted. They're fun, man. It's a good time.
I would use resilient. I'd use fun. I'd also just use good. Like it's a good football team. And I was thinking about this on the plane ride back this morning. I don't know what the Browns are, and I think that's a good thing at this point of the season because if we knew what they were, despite all the change, I think we know what their ceiling is. And the fact that we don't really know what the hell we're going to get on a week-to-week basis from this team, but in the big picture, obviously we know they're going to play good defense, they're going to compete, they're resilient, but who's going to show up? Is it going to be an Njoku game? Is it going to be a Cooper game? Are they going to run the ball 7 times or 35 times? The fact that we don't really know what to expect on a week-to-week basis for this team, I think makes the ceiling and the limit of their potential fuzzy. And that's a good thing because you look around the league and I think there's about 4 or 5 teams that you say, I know for a fact, if everything goes right, this team could win a Super Bowl. And that's like the San Francisco's. Baltimore's in that category. Miami. Kansas City, maybe. Dallas, if everything's like maybe. And then Cleveland's right in that next group of, if you tell me everything falls right, it's not going to shock me if they end up making the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know anything about this team, and that's actually, I think, a good thing because I feel like the teams we know about so far all suck. And the Browns and their ambiguity, big word, learned that at home, shout out to mom, their ambiguity and their ability to kind of transform and an amoeba and fit around and find different ways to win makes their ceiling kind of fuzzy. And I think that's literally the best thing for this team is you don't know what to expect. Hell, Houston, if you ask D'Amico Ryans, what are you getting from this Cleveland offense on Sunday? If you put a truth serum in his water, he'd say, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And I think that's actually a good thing for the Browns. Am I crazy for thinking like that, Earl?
I think I disagree a little bit. I think we don't know what we get from this team week to week as far as how the game plan is put together and the play calling. But as far as their ceiling, I think their ceiling is Super Bowl, and I think their floor for this season is wild card. Like, I see it that clear. I think when I look at teams that things don't have to fall right for them to kind of land in the Super Bowl, I think Baltimore and San Francisco are the only 2 teams that things don't necessarily have to fall right and they can make it to the Super Bowl. I think when you look at the tier 2, I think honestly it's us. I think it's Kansas City. I think it's Philadelphia. I think it's Miami and Buffalo, depending on where they play. So you're right. In that sense, we right there with that handful of teams, man. But I definitely don't. I think I see it clear. You say it's a little fuzzy. I see it a little bit clearer. I think this is a team that can actually get to the Super Bowl. Like, you know, earlier I said they can get to the AFC Championship, man. But with the AFC being so wide open and the Browns already have proven that they can beat teams that's on their level, you know, despite whatever the injuries look like, you know, then I find it hard to believe, well, damn, they could actually make it to the Super Bowl. Like I don't see why they couldn't. You know, you look at every team that's in the AFC wildcard, AFC playoff race right now, and you can look at all those teams and say, well, shit, they can get there. Excuse my language, but they can get there. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things to where I look at it and say, as long as they continue to handle their business, they get there. Now you're right. Week to week, we don't know what the game plan will look like, but I think we all know, and we've talked about it a lot this week, Mike, is that Kevin Stefanski is starting to rev up the engine with the play calling because he's more and more comfortable with Joe Flacco running this system, and he's getting back to some roots of the things that he used to call as a play caller before he even arrived in Cleveland. So
perception is a funny thing. So you guys know I'm from Central Jersey, about an hour from New York, hour from Philly. And after the Eagles lost on Monday Night Football, the Eagles are a team that has made the Super Bowl last season, has already clinched a playoff spot. Based on their remaining schedule, will probably finish the season 13-4. And if you ask any Philly fan, you would swear the sky is falling. The franchise is absolute dog trash. They want everyone fired. Jalen Hurts is overrated. He may not be the guy anymore. And from the outside looking in, and I don't even disagree with them. From the outside looking in, you look at Philadelphia, you go, they're 10-4. You already clinched a playoff spot. You got the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Giants to end the season. Like, calm down. You'll be all right. And they feel like their team is going nowhere. And on the flip side, you look at Cleveland. They're 9-5. They're down 153 different starters. And I think we actually feel better about this team now, Earl. And we think the ceiling for this team now is higher than before week one kicked off. Like, I didn't think this team was a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the preseason. I thought it was a playoff team. I didn't think it was a Super Bowl contender. And now I put them in that tier 2 group with just about every team outside of San Francisco, Baltimore, and maybe one other team on the right day. So it's just crazy how perception changes how you look at a certain situation. And Philly fans suck. I enjoy seeing them lose their damn minds. Like it's a beautiful thing to watch, but it's just crazy how depending on where you are and your expectations for a certain team, player, etc., how you can look at a situation in two completely different lights. And in one case, the sky is falling. In the other case, expectations have actually risen since the catastrophic injuries.
I think a lot of that has to do with the time of year that we're in, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you were in the last quarter of the regular season, they're 10-4 and our 9-5 just looks a little different. The Cleveland Browns was on a 2-game winning streak and they look like they're surging. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles then lost 3 in a row and they look like they're going in the wrong direction. So yeah, I mean, you know, the sky isn't falling, but I can understand why Philadelphia fans will be pissed off because as you're closing out the regular season, you're not playing your best football. And, you know, I think a lot of people allude to we do this week in and week out as we should. But when it boils down to it, you know, no matter what your record is, I think how you're playing as the season comes to a close matters more than what your overall record is. You know, we've seen teams like the Philadelphia Eagles in years past. I mean, hell, go back to 2020 and you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers who closed out the season the way that they did, and they ended up losing to the Cleveland Browns in the first round of the playoffs. And so, yeah, I can definitely understand why they would feel like the sky's falling, and we feel like the sky's the limit. So
it's just crazy how you look and like Jalen Hurts or Joe Flacco. Like you're taking Jalen, like you just look at all the things and compare them, and the fans cannot be looking at situations more differently. And I know you guys talked a little bit about this week, so if I start repeating anything that you guys have hammered home, just tell me to move on. We'll keep going. But what do you guys and what did the panel say this week about Houston as a football team? I know CJ Stroud still in concussion protocol. He's probably not going to play, which is a major boost for Cleveland. He'd been one of the best and one of the most efficient and effective rookie quarterbacks I've seen in a while. But do you get the sense that Bull, Tyvis, Jay, G, those guys are taking Houston lightly, or is this another scrappy opponent that's just next up on the Browns schedule?
I think if CJ was playing, we'd be taking it a little bit more seriously. But I won't spoil headlines for tomorrow. But after going over everybody's headlines, predictions, kind of feeling it out, with Case Keenum starting, I don't think there's a lot of worry about this game, which, I don't know. Like, anytime we're not worried about a game, it usually has a way to go sideways. And I get text messages during the first 3 quarters that we're losing. So, I think we all can agree that Houston is a better team than we thought they were at the beginning of the season. CJ Stroud came out of nowhere, but the fact that he's not playing, I'm not scared of Case Keenum. I brought up a stat today that we have 3 of the top 5 three of our cornerbacks are in the top 5 of coverage success.
Mhm.
I think it's Emerson, Ward, and Newsome. All three of them are up there. And I think they're going to just like Keenum's not going to have anywhere to throw the ball. So it's kind of all on their run game. And if our defense can stop the run game like they stopped against Chicago, I'm not worried about their team really at all. I'm a little worried about their defense, but I don't think anybody else is taking this game super seriously.
Earl, how do you look at Houston?
I mean, I look at Houston as a damn good football team. I think D'Amico Ryan has did a hell of a job of kind of turning that organization around. I think they got real lucky and struck gold. The fact that CJ Stroud fell to number 2, they got themselves a franchise quarterback. I think they filled out the rest of the roster with a lot of talent over the last couple of years. You look at guys like John Mechie III. You look at guys like Tank Dell, who I know he's hurt right now. You got Will Anderson, one of my favorites, Stingley Jr. from LSU. That dude's a baller. So they got some talented players. You see Devin Singletary seem to have revitalized his career since he's been in Houston. I think Cecil did a great job Wednesday of laying out, the impact that CJ Stroud has had on this team. As far as it relates to this game, I know for a fact I'm taking it serious. I know that I'm not overlooking the Houston Texans. I don't believe in looking at a team and feeling like that this is an automatic win, right? I think that you got to go in there and you still got to handle your business. Anthony kind of put together a segment talking about the Houston Texans defense and how if you look at the numbers, a lot of the sack and turnover and, all those numbers, they're kind of similar. I was looking at the injury report to get ready for the show, and their linebacker, Blake Cashman, was a DNP for the last 2 days with a hamstring, and Will Anderson is a DNP for the last 2 days with an ankle injury. And so, more than likely already being down CJ Stroud, looking like you'll be down some quality players on the defensive side of the ball. The spread is already flipped. The Browns are 2.5-point favorites right now. And I can only imagine that it'll go up a little bit before we actually get to Sunday. But it's a quality opponent, a team that can still, try to fight for a wild card spot. But I think at this point, the Browns need to, win this game. 99.9% chance that you clinch a playoff spot, you win this game. But honestly, do what you can, control what you can to try to chase down the Ravens, right? You can't control the outcome of their season. But I think that this is the start of, let's not just make the playoffs. Let's try to go win this division. And so, I don't think the Browns is going to come in here and overlook the Houston Texans, man. I think, honestly, they got bigger dreams than that 5th seed in that wild card.
Yeah, I mean, Houston is not only fighting for a wild card spot as well, but they're 1 game behind Jacksonville for the division lead. So this is an equally important game for both teams here. And you said something that I've kind of harped on all season. As soon as we feel good, something bad happens. And I go back to week 2 against Pittsburgh. And I remember this is before we moved to our new office. And I'm looking at you before the game. I'm like, Earl, there's nothing Pittsburgh can do to beat us. There's nothing. And you came back and you're like, I feel so good about this game. I was like, I feel great. And then we all know what happened in week 2 on Monday Night Football. As soon as we start getting ahead of ourselves, that's when issues happen. These are the 2 most injured teams in football, by the way. The Browns, 15 guys on IR. The Texans, 18 guys on IR. It's a battle of attrition at this point. And you brought up the stat about the Browns having 3 of the top 4 guys in coverage success rate. That's a sub-fact on a McNuggets 5 stat tomorrow.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to steal your thunder.
All good. I'm going to give you a little teaser. Nico Collins, who practiced today for the Texans, is the number 1 rated receiver against man coverage this season. He has a damn near perfect quarterback rating when targeted in man coverage. That's where it comes in. He's going to have to go against Emerson, against Ward, against Newsome. So that'll be a battle to watch. The one thing Keenum does that Stroud doesn't do, by the way, and this could be an advantage, could not. You'd rather face Keenum than Stroud 100 times, but the Texans are one of the best yak yard teams in all of football. Yards after catch. They catch short passes, turn them into big gains. Tackling is going to be imperative, of the utmost importance in this contest. Nico Collins breaks tackles, great yak guy. Tank Dell, or you mentioned him earlier, he's out. One of the fastest, shiftiest slot receivers in all of football. Noah Brown last week broke a couple big plays on short curl routes that he turned into 15, 20-yard gains. The Browns have to tackle, but more importantly than any of that, they can't turn the football over. And they have a win's a win. You take nothing away. but they shouldn't have beat Chicago, and they should have beat Jacksonville by 50. And they beat Chicago because Joe Flacco was amazing in the fourth quarter, but he had 3 turnovers before that. They should have beat Jacksonville by 50, but 2 turnovers. One was the interception. One was the sack strip fumble. One was the Amari Cooper fumble. Turnovers allowed Jacksonville to stay in the game. If the Browns turn the ball over like they have, I think this one's going to be close. If they can protect the football, I feel really good about Cleveland being a step ahead of Houston when it's all said and done. And I know it's basic, but like that's the formula here.
Well, just think about this, right? I mean, the Browns have played a clean game once this entire year. I think the Tennessee game is the only game that we didn't have a turnover.
Did they turn over against Arizona?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Few and far between. Your point is few and far between.
Right. And I know that they got at least 13, 14 wins when they do play a clean game under Kevin Stefanski. The turnovers has been an issue for this team all season. Both Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski came out at the bye week and said that correcting this issue was the number one priority. Guess what? It hasn't worked, right? And so I don't really have much confidence that this team can go out and play a clean game. But what I do know is that despite not being able to do so, they still find ways to win every single Sunday. And so, like, I've kind of moved the needle on my expectation when it comes to the turnovers. Just don't let it cost you, right? If you're gonna go out there and turn the ball over, you bet not let it cost you the victory, right? When you need those big plays and those big moments, you still better be able to go out there. You need to be able to get those. You alluded to the 3 interceptions from Flacco. I'm starting to kind of get into this all 22 thing and kind of go back and try to study a little bit more. And 2 of those, man, all interceptions is not created equal for any quarterback.
Justin Fields got credited for 2 last week, and he didn't throw a real interception.
2 of those though, man, it was on the rookie Cedric Tillman, right?
Yeah,
and you seen, like, if you got a chance to see the TV view, you seen Flacco kind of coaching him up on the sideline after both of those instances. I think the one interception to David Njoku was definitely on Flacco. He was late with that pass, but you know what? Flacco was one of those dudes, man. He cool Joe, right? He throw an interception, he dusts himself off, he get back out there, and he's ready for the next drive, the next possession, the next play, etc. So, this team, every game it has its own unique way of playing out. Just go out there and play sound football and understand everything that you set out to accomplish at the beginning of the season is still out there in front of you. That includes the division title.
All right, let me ask you a question. And there's no right or wrong answer here. We're going to kind of talk about this tomorrow on the show. But do you think at this stage of his career, Joe Flacco it's a 2-part question. So it's a yes or no, then an explanation. So first part, yes or no. Mm-hmm. Does Joe Flacco have it in him to play a turnover-free game?
Yes.
Part 2, is part of what makes Joe Flacco so good and what has made him so good the last 3 weeks his willingness to take those extra chances, and you'll live with those turnovers because of the game-breaking plays like the throw to Amari Cooper? Would you rather have, would you rather have a quarterback who's not scared to throw into tight windows to get the Amari Cooper touchdown, for example, and have the trade-off of an interception here or there, as opposed to a quarterback who's scared to make those throws and never puts the ball in risk?
So I really started falling in love with football when I was about 8 years old. That's 1995. The Browns is pretty much packing up and moving. They're no longer here. Of course, you adapt the team, you adapt the player. My favorite football player growing up was Brett Favre. So I think that should tell you everything.
I was going to say, I know your answer just by saying that.
Yeah, I think that should tell you everything you need to know about how I feel about quarterbacks who's willing to take some chances to make some big plays, right? Like, big risks sometimes equal big reward or big failures, and it comes with it, But we go back and forth about what a franchise quarterback is, what a starting quarterback is, and what you look at, in that dude. And I think sometimes we get too caught up on the numbers when it comes to the overall game. Joe Flacco did not play his best game for the first 3 quarters. But when it was money time, when it was winning time, the man went out there in the fourth quarter and balled out. He threw for 210 yards and only had 1 incomplete pass and a touchdown. And so, like, at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for, right? And I know Joe Flacco is considered an old man, but if you really think about the best quarterbacks over time, I mean, people talked ad nauseum all season about Lamar Jackson and his turnovers, right? Lamar Jackson is an MVP candidate, and they can count on him to go get a big play or a score when it matters. We look at Pat Mahomes, right? Pat Mahomes is a dude who makes all kind of crazy ass passes, all kind of crazy ass throws. And most times he's successful, and sometimes he's not. You look at Josh Allen, a dude is a gamer, but a dude who leads the NFL in interceptions since he's entered the league. And so I'm all for a quarterback that's willing to take chances, man, to put some points on the board with the understanding that sometimes you're going to come up short.
For the record, I 100% agree. Scare money don't make no money. And the same thing goes with quarterbacks. Same thing goes in basketball. You think Michael Jordan was going to pass up a shot because it wasn't a good one in crunch time? Like, it wasn't happening. You got to have the balls to make a throw at the end of the day. And Joe Flacco has proven time and time again in the last 3 games, when it matters most, he has shown up in a big way. And Earl, you mentioned something about what quantifies as a franchise quarterback. I remember after the Baltimore game when Deshaun went 14 for 14, led the Browns on that comeback win, we were sitting here on the postgame show saying, yeah, the numbers are awesome, but it's all about, do you have confidence in that guy in that moment to make the play? And I haven't seen anything from Flacco that makes me feel that when the lights are the brightest, he's not going to show up in the way he has the last few games. So, like, he's obviously not the long-term answer. He's 38 years old, about to turn 39, but I feel as good about him. I feel as good about Flacco as I have for any quarterback in a long time. And that's no knock on anyone else. It's just how good Flacco's been. So it's been fun to watch. And I was talking to people back home, and I did a show in Texas this morning. They're like, how's Flacco doing this? And you could start, Earl, go next, and then I'll wrap it up. Then we could talk little Cavs. But they asked like how he's doing it. And I was like, I don't know. He just drank. He found the fountain of youth, like
pure spite. I don't know. Like
try explaining it. Like, if the question was, hey, how is Joe Flacco doing what he's doing? And I want you could answer that however you want to answer that. But I didn't have a good answer, so I'm curious what you guys would say. That was the question. How is Joe Flacco doing what he's doing?
I'm gonna stick with pure spite, because we talked about how like this guy, like he thought he was counted out, right? Like nobody picked him up. He's probably a little pissed off about it, right? He gets the call from the Browns. They're like, hey, you got one more shot to prove it. And I mean, just out of spite, he's gonna prove it, you know.
Earl, how would you explain it?
You know, for me, I always talk about the unwritten intangibles, right? Or the things that can't be measured in a box score. And it's kind of like an add-on to what Ant just said, right? I think it's the heart. I think like when you go through what he's went through, it's almost like he was forced out the NFL. He clearly was not ready to retire. He felt like he had more to bring to a table. He felt like he had something that he can offer a team, and he didn't get a call. And in his very first press conference, he said it. I was shocked nobody called me. And so I think, like, you know, when you have something taken away from you and it's not something that's in your control, you know, you miss it. And then when you get an opportunity to get it back, you kind of nurture it a little more. You kind of like appreciate it a little more. I think it's that and the fact that, you know what I mean, he could just be playing free, loose, and just inspired and happy because like he didn't get the call, you know, and so it could be spite. And that heart, you know, that like, I'm going to show you, I still got it in me. And so to see a quarterback who still can throw the ball downfield, who's clearly more mobile and can move around in a pocket more than what we gave him credit for. And you just happen to be on a team that's a damn good football team, from general manager all down to clearly man 53 on the roster, man, that's a win-win situation for him.
Yeah, my answer wasn't good. I said it's partly because I just think he's better than we gave him credit for when he got kicked out of New York. Or kicked out's not the right word, but when the Jets decided to not bring him back. I think him and Stefanski have found a really good rhythm in the play calling. He fits what Stefanski wants to do. He's able to execute. And I wonder if there's something to this, and I don't know, and the answer is probably no. But the fact that he didn't go through training camp, he wasn't hit, his arm just looks fresh as hell. And you can't you can't save a guy for a playoff run. Like, that's not how it works. But I do wonder if there is something to him just being a little fresher physically than the other guys across the league, and especially defenses who have played 12, 13 games already, as opposed to Joe, who's just playing his second and third games. Like, there's probably nothing to that. Maybe there's something there. Like, I don't know, but he looks to be a step sharper and a half second quicker mentally than a lot of the other guys on the opposing side of the field. And maybe that's because he hasn't thrown the football 8,000 times this year. He's only thrown it 800. So, like, maybe, and I didn't have a good answer.
I mean, I think that plays a part into it. I mean, anybody who's suited up for every game this season so far is playing injured, regardless if they're quarterback or not, right? Like, at this point, nobody is at 100%. And he just happened to be coming off the couch, and this will be his fourth game, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, yeah, his arm is fresh, and I just think it's one of those things, man, to where it's just things that are aligning and in the proper time that's working out for the Cleveland Browns after so many seasons of things like not aligning up for the Cleveland Browns. So, like, I think like it's a lot of good things. I'm just happy that it's happening.
We appreciate Jimmy Schultz for gifting 5 memberships.
Shout out
to
to
Jimmy. You're a good dude. We appreciate you. Just to talk Cavs for a few minutes before we do a little holiday wrap up.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, and I know we talked a little bit on the phone yesterday. I didn't get a chance to see the show today in the topic, but what are the guys and what do you guys think about the potential to not trade Donovan Mitchell, but is any of this going to be impacted by the injuries to Darius Garland and Evan Mobley?
So we didn't really get on even into like the hot seat stuff. We kind of stuck on Mitchell today, but I don't know. I think it's a little weird overall. Like, if we're going to talk about this whole thing is, we get on here and there's injuries galore on the Browns, and we still are like, Kevin Stefanski, you got to figure this out, man. Like, it's your job, next man up. And to hear like things being said that like, okay, now that 2 of your main all-stars are hurt and they're going to be out for significant time. All right, the pressure's off JB. He can coast for a little bit, and he is winning. Like, I mean, we can't. I understand that he won
12
last
now.
night.
They've actually played better recently.
Yeah, no, like I know most of it last night. Looking at the box score was a lot of the bench players that scored. But I just don't. I don't see why we are willing to give JB a pass for this, and we'll turn around and call for Stefanski's head if we lose a game. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think we've been talking about JB possibly not being the right fit since last season, going into the offseason, coming into this season. These injuries don't make a difference to me.
Oh,
I mean, for me, if I'm being totally honest with our fan base and totally honest with myself, man, it's just something about this year's team that's just not doing it for me. It's just something about this year's team that I watch it out of obligation, not out of fandom, if I'm being totally transparent. And I'm still trying to figure out like why that is. Am I still pissed off and frustrated from how we played in the playoffs last year against the New York Knicks? Am I disappointed because the start of the season kind of looks like a replica of how the season ended for the Cavaliers? Am I disappointed because Evan Mobley is not turning out to be this unicorn player that I thought he would be? Is it frustrating to watch constantly not seeing Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland to, be able to play off of one another effectively? Like, it's just a lot going on that really has me kind of turned off as a fan. I watch them out of obligation because I want to be prepared to do my job to the best of my ability. But I'm looking at this team, and yeah, they have played better as of late, but it's like, man, they're missing something. It's something that they're missing, and we're going to all find somewhere to point, but it's like, this head coach just ain't doing it for me, right? He just not. And, Ant talked about the injuries. It is a little bit harder to try to stay afloat in the NBA when you lose marquee players. I will say that, right? Football is the ultimate team sport. You need all those pieces moving in the right direction. in the NBA, if you got 1-3 superstars, a couple role players, you can kind of make some noise and make it do what it do. And so, yeah, the task is going to be tough. But you know what, Mike, if I'm being real, that's what you get for trying to run it back with the same team that you kind of went out in the first round with, that clearly didn't mesh, clearly didn't have the heart that we thought that they had, right? Like, you did nothing to try to shake it up. You thought running it back, and I kudos for adding pieces that you added. But like, even those pieces haven't been complimentary for real. Let's just keep it real. Like, this team it's just not what I expected. That's just me.
They've played better of late. So I'll use the Chicago Bulls to make a point to get back to the Cavs. When Zach LaVine got hurt for the Bulls, they won 4 in a row, and then I think they won 7 of 8. And they play significantly better when their highest paid and on paper their best player isn't in, because they play just a brand of basketball that they don't have to focus on getting him the ball, letting him do his thing. Everyone's more involved. And because there's only 5 guys on a court, unlike football, if you're not involved, it's easy to zone out in a way. And that was the whole qualm and the issue with Russell Westbrook when he was the only guy in OKC. And even though he's putting up these gaudy numbers, it was tough to play with him, because if you touch the ball, it was with 3 seconds on the shot clock. You were never in a rhythm and were asked to make a play on the fly. The Cavs are not better by any means without Darius Garland or without Evan Mobley or any of their big guys. Like, to reach their full potential, they need all of those guys. But I implore anyone to go back and watch last night's game and to watch the ball movement and to watch guys like Sam Merrill, who is my hero. That's exactly who I wanted to be when I played. I just wasn't that good. But to come out and just absolutely light it up. They were shooting threes left and right. And there's a difference in the way they play with one big, whether it be Mobley or Allen. In last night's case, it was Allen. With 4 shooters, they play faster. They play with more pace. They pass the ball significantly more, and they utilize the pick and roll a lot less. And I don't know if that's the high-end potential of this team. If that's the offensive philosophy they need to adapt. But it's hard to ask a guy like Darius Garland to play off the ball when what he's done for his entire career and what he got paid $250+ million to do was to create for others off the dribble in a pick and roll offense. It's the same thing with Donovan Mitchell. And I could keep banging my head against the wall saying they have to figure out a better way to be more cohesive together offensively. But the reality is what they're both best at is the same thing. And when you have guys that overlap, I'm not saying it can't work. It's just you have to scheme an offense to get the most out of both of them. And when they both do the same thing from the same position, it's hard for other guys to get into the rhythm, to get involved, to get incorporated into the offense. So I don't know if I'm ready to call for sweeping changes. I had it on good authority. I still have it on good authority. JB's on the hot seat. We'll see. I'm shocked he's still the head coach right now, for being completely honest. I mean, I heard this quite a while ago, and I'm not the only one who's heard those rumors. But I just have a hard time watching them play a certain way and then knowing as soon as they get guys back, they're going to stop playing this kind of brand of basketball. And even though it's probably what they have to do to make any sort of noise in the playoffs, I just don't think it's sustainable. I don't think it's winning basketball for them.
You know what's frustrating, though? They're playing the correct brand of basketball that they should be playing right now, and they're doing it because they're forced to do so. And just what you said is going to happen.
There you go. You said it better than me.
It's like you accidentally fell into the right style of basketball play because injuries forced you to do so. And as soon as you get guys back, you're going to go back to trying to force like a peg into a round hole, and it's not going to work. And that's why I feel like we need another head coach, because when it's kind of like thrown right in your face on how to go about it, and you see what works, and you still try to force your own agenda the moment you get the opportunity to do so, then it shows that you're not the right guy. And I'm not saying that I agree with you, right? When you get guys that's ball dominant, who's been ball dominant their entire career, and that's why they are who they are, and then you tell them now you got to share the rock, like you a hooper. And Mike, I'm gonna always defer to you to that on those things, but it's like, man, I just be wondering, like, will Eric Spoelstra have figured it out? Like, will Pop figure out how to use these dudes? If Steve Kerr had his team, could he figure out how to use these dudes? Like, what if Nick Nurse was the coach, right? Yeah. I'm in a place of ignorance because I don't know, right? And so, like, all I know is the fandom in me says, okay, well, if you got all this talent, like at the end of the day, it's still ball in the basket. Just figure out how to make it work.
The Cavs with their roster at full health is a great 2K roster. I'm just not sure it's a great real NBA roster. Like
that's the best way to put
it. And there's nothing wrong with being a pick and roll team. Like the Sixers are a pick and roll team. There's a ton of teams in the league that utilize pick and roll, like as their primary form of offense. And you're gonna say that they have a million different ways to get into it. At the end of the day, it's a ball handler, a pick, and two guys in the corner. Then they run it about 75% of the time would be my rough estimate. You just have to be a little more creative. And I know, like, as much as I want to be mad at JB, and I don't think he's necessarily the greatest head coach in the world, I also don't know how you ask Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland to do other stuff and get the most out of them in that sense when you're still trying to win at the highest level. I think he's kind of screwed. Like, I think he's in a no-win situation here, Earl. And I think at the end of the day, everyone in this situation is better off just parting ways and trying to let someone else figure it out. But with the roster as currently constructed, like I don't think you could turn Darius Garland into a Klay Thompson. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that's maximizing what he does. But you have to try something else because what you're doing now isn't working. So I'm open for anything. No,
I feel like I got a question for you, and I know this is not going to happen. I'm just thinking about this from just this standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
If LeBron was here, LeBron has the ability to play like that point forward. Will we have these issues?
No, and you'd have some of the issues, but not all of them.
Because I know LeBron is ball dominant, but LeBron can do his thing with or without it. And that's why I'm like if he was here, and he was that point forward with these two dudes, like, will we be this frustrated at what we're seeing? Probably not. I think I know the answer, but I just want your take on it.
LeBron is the greatest scientist when it comes to basketball of all time. You give him any equation, I feel more confident in LeBron being able to solve that basketball situation than anyone else. The one thing LeBron would do is, Darius is a point guard, and yes, Donovan's ball dominant, but LeBron has the cachet that whatever he says goes. So when he brings it up, you fit in around LeBron. LeBron does not fit to you. So, and there's only probably 6 players in the NBA right now, 5 or 6, that have that ability to, the offense fits what you do, not what we're going to do, you fit in.
Right.
So I think he would solve the issue of you could just run a lot more motion because he'd be the primary ball handler, or at least half of the primary ball handling duties. But at the end of the day, they still have 2 bigs who can't shoot. And they still have 2 little guards, and defensively, they're not stopping anybody. I don't think it solves all the issues, but I do think it makes the offense run a lot more cohesively. And it's like when he paired up in Miami with, Mario Chalmers is not nearly the player Darius Garland was, but Mario became a point guard who had the ball in his hands at Kansas 95% of the time, to a guy who came off screens and made jump shots because LeBron was the primary ball handler. So it would solve some stuff. I don't think it's the end-all be-all fix, Earl.
Yeah.
But if anyone can figure it out, it is LeBron.
Like I said, it was just a question, and ain't nobody talking about bringing LeBron back. That ship is sailed. Like, it was just, from a fan standpoint, when you talk about 2 dudes who need the ball in their hand, like, I bet you they can be successful without the ball in their hand if a certain player was here.
Yeah,
I guess that's the point I was trying to make.
I'm going to throw out. So I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast today on the flight back, and they did a couple Donovan Mitchell trades. They were just doing trade scenarios, just a midseason pod. These are not reports. These are not offers. It's just him and Ryan Russillo messing around, making some trades up. I'll throw a couple of these at you. I want your initial thoughts, yes or no, if you would do it for the Cavs, if it makes them better, and just some quick reactions. A couple of these. So one of them was Donovan to the Knicks for RJ Barrett, Quentin Grimes, and 2 first-round picks. Yes or no?
Nah.
I don't have a lot of faith in Barrett, so I'm going to say no.
I agree. RJ Barrett, by the way, 7th on the Knicks in fourth quarter minutes this year. His stock has gone downhill. All right, next up. This one I kind of thought was interesting. Donovan to the Pelicans for Dyson Daniels, who's a young 2-wing guard, CJ McCollum, and 2 first-round picks.
Nah.
Yeah. Nah. 2 wings, you said?
2 picks. CJ McCollum, who's, you played in Portland, 6'3" scoring guard. He's not Donovan Mitchell, but he's talented. And then Dyson Daniels, who was a lottery pick 2 years ago, who's like a 6'6", long, athletic 2-guard who has a ton of potential, but is still very young.
I'm going to go with Earl on this one and pass as well.
No. They mentioned a Zach LaVine for Donovan Mitchell swap, which got shut down real quick.
Absolutely not. No.
And then the last one, this is not a Mitchell trade, but would you trade Jared Allen to Golden State for Draymond Green?
I would.
Is he going to play at all for the rest of the season?
Assuming he's not.
Assuming he comes back?
Yes.
I would. I absolutely 1,000% would.
Yeah.
And twice on Sunday.
I was just telling Earl this earlier. Like, you don't have to be a scorer, but you better be a good defender and you better be able to get rebounds. And that's what he can do. Like, he can be that enforcer. So I'd take that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in the chat, if you would
do
real quick, if you're in the chat, give me a 1 if you would trade Jared Allen for Draymond, a 2 if you would say no deal. Or you said yes for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, 1,000%. Like, I was all in on trying to get Draymond this offseason. You know, like
I forgot you were about that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, like I think Draymond Green, like, is he brings that sense of grit that we need. He brings a certain attitude. I know certain people don't like him.
Yeah,
UFC. Is he a dirty player? Pick you with whatever, whatever. But I just know the Cavaliers need somebody like that on this roster, right? Because I bet you if he played for the Cavs, you'll love him. You know what I mean? Like that's just one of those things. I just think like this team lacks toughness and it lacks heart. And I think energy is something in life that's reciprocated. And you bring somebody in with that type of energy, I think it's transferable to the other players on this team.
And I don't have my glasses on. What does the chat say?
I'm seeing actually a lot of 2s. I got 1-1.
Some people say he's the dirtiest player in the NBA. I mean, that's.
I don't know if he's the dirtiest, but
it's a bunch of players in the NBA. So I mean, they wasn't saying that last year. The one dude that played for Houston now used to play for Memphis. Can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Oh, Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they say the same about him. Like, whatever. Like, if this was, I don't know. See, I have to understand that I'm born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. And Mike, you can
trying to win basketball games.
We both seen a lot worse than what we see in today's NBA growing up. Like me and you've talked. I used to watch like the Knicks and the Heats and the playoff series all the time. Like you talk about like dirty play and things like that, man. What Draymond Green and some of these dudes do in 2023 ain't nothing compared to what was going on in the 90s. So
two more trades. Donovan Mitchell to the Nets for Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, and a first-round pick.
Mikey, I'm going to defer to the Nets fan here because I don't think I've watched a single Nets game this season.
It's a wing. It's a young scoring guard who plays 0 defense and a first-round pick. I think you get more, so I would say no.
Yeah, I want defense.
Who was that for?
Mitchell.
Nah. None of these trades for Donovan Mitchell brings back enough to the Cavaliers, man. This sounds like when the Cavs traded Kyrie Irving for pennies on the dollar.
Well, here's the last one that I think if you were going to – these are all from Bill Simmons, by the way. Just throwing this out from his podcast today with Ryan Russillo. To the Heat for Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, a salary filler, and 2 firsts. It's essentially what they offered Dame Lillard.
I like the 2 firsts. I like Tyler Hero. I think I might take that one. Maybe.
I'm gonna be honest with y'all, man.
That's the only one that I really like.
This is just my opinion, and this is not even like trying to have a hot take. I think trying to trade Donovan Mitchell is the wrong piece to move. So last week when we did our broadcast live from where we were, and shout out to everybody who came out, people thought I was crazy because I said I felt like Darius Garland had the most trade value. If you listen to the question, who has the most trade value? I think he has more trade value than Donovan Mitchell because if Donovan Mitchell is not playing in Cleveland, everybody at their mama think he's playing in New York. Mm-hmm. So that lessens his value with every other team that's not the New York Knicks. That's why I believe Darius Garland has more trade value. But at the end of the day, if we keep it real, and I think Hayden Grove of Cleveland.com put it so nice, we can sit up here and try to fool ourselves all we want. Donovan Mitchell is the best player on this team, and you need to do everything in your power to try to keep him. If you can move Darius Garland or Evan Mobley while you can to get some premier talent on this team to pair with Donovan Mitchell, then that's your best bet. But we sit up here, and the only reason we're talking about it is because we're unsure if he's going to be in Cleveland long term. But the reality is he's the best player on this basketball team. And if you're looking to move anything, you need to be looking to move one of his supporting cast to pair with him in hopes that you can build with him, man, and improve this team. That's just how I feel. Other people might not feel that way, but this whole we need to trade Donovan Mitchell, we talking about trading the wrong person. We literally sitting up here talking about trading the best player on our team because we worried about contract talk. If you do what you got to do to build a team around him now, like I just think that's the best move to make. That's just me.
Yeah. I don't think you're totally off base. He's the second best Cav since LeBron, or the second best Cav behind LeBron in the last 30, 40 years. So we're going to get super chats in a sec. And if you see any more, Ant, drop them in. But first, Earl, Ant, it is the holiday season.
It is.
Ant, you're off the next 2 days. So this is your last show before Christmas.
It is.
Does the Antonelli household have any special Christmas traditions you want to share before we read some super chats and say goodbye for the night?
Not really. We usually go hang out at one of our family houses, just do normal like family get together. However, I was telling Earl this morning, this is the first year in my 26 years being alive that I will not be home for Christmas. I won't be going to the family. I will be spending it down in Columbus. So my mother's probably gonna be crying when she hears like when it really hits her that I'm not here Christmas morning.
Have you told her yet?
Yeah, she knows. I think she's holding it in. I'm gonna be honest.
I say that's one of the ones you got to tell way in advance to.
So I won't be at home for Christmas for the first time for literally ever. So it's gonna be an interesting year. I'm excited though.
And Earl.
No real Christmas like traditions for real, at least not anymore. I think for me, just looking at social media and stuff like that, when I look up and I just see other people who really love Christmas and who are really excited for the holidays, when I look out and see those people enjoying it, I'll be happy to see them people happy. And that's what it is about for me. So,
yeah, well, the Lucases don't do anything. We eat and drink and hang out and be lazy. And we watched half of Oppenheimer before we all passed out. So that is about what we do on Christmas. But it was cool with my sister back in town from Germany and my brother came down. My grandma came up. So we got the family together this past Sunday. But I will take football and basketball on Christmas Day any day of the year. Like I know it sucks that we got to work on Christmas Eve, but and we're doing a show on Christmas. There will be UCSS on Christmas. Do not worry. It'll be a pre-tape thing, but there will be a show on Christmas. But when there's good football on and meaningful football, I don't really care what day it is, what holiday it is that makes up for it. So with that, let's get to some super chats. And just those two.
Yeah, we only got 2 of them.
I left my glass. I can't read with that. I'm sorry. I got these new lights, so staring into my glasses, I feel like I'm blind. All right. Avery Kyle says, loving the show from Denver, Colorado. Shout out to
you, Avery.
Shout out to Colorado. Shout out to everyone who taps in and watches with us. We know it's all over the country, so we appreciate you guys for doing that. Skilly says, hey, look, part-time is back. Hope you had a great time at home with your family, Mike. Merry Christmas. All if I can't catch on a live show beforehand, we appreciate you, Skilly. Merry Christmas to you guys as well. Any final thoughts, Earl?
Man, final thoughts on this one. I think the Cavs is actually playing the Pelicans tonight. Actually, right here at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. So for the Cavs, man, Donovan Mitchell is not playing again. Do what you got to do to come away victorious. I think the Cleveland Browns will win. I think Joe Flacco is going to throw for 300 again. That'll be game number 3. Hopefully, and I went wacko for Flacco saying that it was gonna go 5-0. So hopefully, I'm in a situation to where I actually got to gift these people 50 memberships. As I said, I know you said you would do it. Jay said they would do it, and you said you would do it. So hey, let's do it, man. If Flacco go wacko, then our pockets go bye. So
I'll take 5-0. That's a good punishment for that.
Yeah. So but no, glad to have you back. Shout out to Ant, man. Like Ant is he did his thing. He killed it when he was in that chair, and just looking forward to getting it going. Mike finna try to work my ass to death tomorrow because he ain't did nothing in like 4 or 5 days, and he ain't got.
There's not that many graphics in there.
Earl, I will let you know.
The only thing we need help with is some canvas. That's the only thing I'm really.
Yeah, I stayed until 4 o'clock today to make sure everything that was done. You're good, dude.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Hey, listen, the one thing about Mike, he gonna load us up on a Thursday and Friday. He might not think he do, but we're gonna close out the week with a lot of work. But it is what it is.
I did headlines today for tomorrow. I come back from vacation and I'm gonna have to do headlines right again for the Thursday night game.
Absolutely.
quick week, quick turn. We're doing
Quick
Kool-Aid meter
turnaround.
next week too, Ant. So get ready for that. I got a great Kool-Aid meter idea. Next week,
I love doing the Kool-Aid meter. That one's fun.
We're gonna do fun. Also, one little behind the scenes thing, real quick. But on Wednesday, I was sitting at my kitchen table looking up some stats for the McNuggets 5-piece on Friday, and it happened to come across something that I saw on the rundown. So even from back home, finagling through some things, I found a stat for Earl. Did you end up using that stat, Earl? The Hickman?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So listen, even when we're off, it's still a team effort. And also,
that's
said
that's funny because we all said that. Hey, Skilly said he'd give 20. Evan 419 said he'd give some memberships too. So the Browns actually closed this thing out at 5-0, man. It might be upward to over 200 memberships.
Fingers crossed.
Being gifted out. So yeah, let's do it.
I believe in him.
Let's do it.
All right, that's gonna do it for Behind the Glass. We appreciate y'all, and have a great holiday weekend, great Christmas with your family and Bree's family. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hopefully, you guys have a very Merry Christmas, a happy holiday, and can celebrate a Browns victory over the Houston Texans on Christmas Eve into Christmas. We're back tomorrow, 11 to 1 on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We will see y'all then. For Anthony, Earl, McNuggets,